Everybody, welcome back to the desk. Swan, initialize in the center. Nymera over on the other side. Gentlemen, game 3 is upon us faster than I think I would have expected time-wise. Hours of the day have not passed enough for my expectation, but Sengoku Gaming are at match point here, and this is now, gentlemen, where I start to ask the question: was that first game the best opportunity for Crest Gaming Act to get that win that so many predicted them to get at least one? Or is it all downhill? Obviously, Crest Gaming Act were meant to be coming into a lead, or at least equaling Sengoku Gaming at this point. And now, is this the time for the reverse comeback, Nymera? Is this the opportunity for Crest Gaming Act?
Is it the chance for the reverse sweep?
It has to start here.
Well, it would have to start here. I think it has to start with a huge change in the bot lane too. I just don't see it happening as it currently stands. I think CJ need to regain their confidence somehow, and I think one of the ways to do that is normally resetting your mental. It's just a question of how do you do that? Do you go for a fundamentally different draft? Well, they've kind of lost with quite two different drafts, so I don't know. I don't know at this point. I think it's very difficult for CJ to come back. Well, then again, all reverse sweeps are very difficult.
They really are, but I mean, initially, it's coming over to you. Sengoku Gaming are in the driver's seat, and that last game that we just saw was a little bit of a massacre.
It kind of was. First game, they managed to at least trade advantages to the other side of the map, right? That Cassin and Nat had a great top side. That dive for first blood of the Jace was fantastic. The follow-up dive at the tier 2. Also really well played. It was nice to try and force Crash into a difficult space with the invade on the jungle. This time the invade doesn't work out as well. Cassin doesn't really get a lot done on the map. Tries to try and bush bait, but he's kind of by himself. He's not really synced up with the rest of his teammates for a lot of those plays, and it kind of just falls apart. And I need to see another concerted early game plan, because this one clearly didn't work out in the game 2. It did at least play somewhat to plan in game 1 that made it a lot more competitive in the mid game. They were ahead in gold, or at least close in gold for a lot of that first game. So they can do it, but it needs to come without the cost being the bot lane being down multiple thousands of gold. It is now 2 games in a row where I've seen over 2,000 gold individually difference between these AD carries. That cannot happen again. You need to see, or at least if it does, it needs to be a massive gold lead on the other side to try and counteract that massive problem.
I mean, maybe to find those huge gold leads, Nymera, we need to see some more standard picks coming out of Crest Gaming App, because the spice didn't pay off as far as I was expecting it to.
But it didn't exactly work out in game 1 for them when they picked, quote-unquote normal picks either. Well, I mean, I suppose one thing could change is maybe you can get Cassin on a more ganking champion. I don't think the Graves has necessarily been the problem. I think in game 1, the Graves is actually a point of power. Game 2, yeah, not so much. Cassin didn't really get off to the fighting start that they wanted to. Got a farm lead, but then kind of misplayed on a number of different fights. I think mainly it does have to be a start in these lanes though, because I think Cassin has done well in his own right to get ahead in that jungle matchup, getting several steals in the early game. Thinking about CGA of last year, that just never happened at all from that team. They rarely had early game plans that cohesive. So I'm now looking at these lanes and I'm thinking, you need to find some way to not capitulate early on that bot side. Maybe you have to go back to something super safe like an Ezreal. Maybe you have to go back to like Senna, Tom Kench or something. Either way, dying over and over, just chain dying to ganks is not an option again, like Sam was saying.
You know what they used to do in these spots for old Crest Gaming Act, ladies and gentlemen?
Give it to Dario.
Silas mid.
That's time.
What they pulled out. It's time for Silas. We know it's competitive. It's been competitive in the LJL since we started covering it. It was a mainstay in some capacity, and it's only starting to now get international play. Is it a
Silas
thing
has been
now?
underrated. I also, by the way, apparently Kayn mid is apparently pretty good into a lot of tankier matchups if you ever think about trying something weird and ruining your solo queue careers.
But granted, I like
Umbral
Karma,
trespassers into the mid lane will be shot. Get rid of it. I don't want to think about that champion being played mid. Just give me a chance to use that phrase more times. It's like a catchphrase for me every time Kane's playing. Either way, I think okay. So I'll throw this one out to you guys, and I'm curious to see what you guys think on this one. I wonder whether CJ ought to be playing through mid, actually, because they've not been doing that much. And, like, where's been the Kassin Nation duo been playing? I want to see that a little bit more, maybe, as a win.
So, I think that was about asking about playing through mid, but I think we lost a bit of initialize there.
Unfortunate. Yes, I was asking, well, where's the Kassin Nation duo? Can we play through mid?
I mean, go for it, Nightmare.
So, I think that that's kind of what happened in game 1, right? I think the problem was that if you are playing such high variance top and bot lanes, when you have them fight, well, bot lane is just going to be high variance just because of the player difference, let's be honest. In lane, Gango and NT are absolutely destructive, and they do that against most duos in the LJL. It's not necessarily a dig at how Milan and Alchemy play, although they are not strong in lane either. When you also have this top lane, which needs a bit of touch and go attention, you know, in game 1 it had to because there was a Jace, game 2 you've got this weird pick in the top lane too. If you don't have an interactive matchup mid, then it's kind of hard to do that. Also, if you're not well, heck, maybe it's some time you bring out something like a Jarvan and say, yeah, we can gank mid, because something like a Graves struggles to do that. Maybe you pick a champion that has an option to do that.
So if that's the option, I had a beep going off. So if that's an option for the side of Crest Gaming Act, that they play around the mid 2v2, but even then in game 1 it didn't work. Is it maybe this Graves? I know we've said that it's not the Graves pick, but we know Kassin could play so much more. The Lilia hover, and did you see the look that Kassin gave Nation when he was like, "What are you doing?"
I mean, we did see it. We saw a Lilia mid in the LCK at some point.
We
just
did. It's been a thing. I'm just saying, it's not completely out there. Well, I mean, it is, but it's been done.
Wait, that was Chovy doing that one, right?
Pretty sure that one was, yes.
Of course. There we go. Well, gentlemen, now I have to ask you the really tough question as we are at match point. Is this going to be the 3-0? Obviously, I'm biased towards this because of my prediction before this, so I will not comment on this one, but I'm interested in both of yours, as you both predicted at least one win coming from Crest Gaming Out. And coming over to you, Initialize, first. Can Sengoku get the 3-0, or is this going to be the opportunity for Crest Gaming Out to hit hard back?
We've seen a game where it's been even to slightly ahead for CGA early on, and they lost it. We've seen a game where they were absolutely destroyed early on, and they lost it. I think it's a 3-0 coming the way of Sengoku Gaming, and it's going to be bot diff.
Hey, doesn't expect to get his perfect prediction. Nymera, very quickly from you, sir.
If I could do that copy pasta about being 15, well, you know, 15 down or something like that, and did they come back? No, absolutely not. Got shut out. Well, I think that's going to be the case here. I think CGA just don't have what it takes to really flip it around.
Well, with that all said, gentlemen, we have got the pick and ban phase upon us. So, ladies and gentlemen, game number 3 is upon us. Gentlemen, take it away.
Thank you again, Mass1. And we are into what could be final game of our first playoff series. Sengoku Gaming are now 2 games up in this best of 5. CGA are on the blue side, Sengoku are on the red, and it's a Thresh first pick one more time for CGA. The bans,
but it has to be
changing around a little bit. We've finally seen some changes. Hecarim off the table.
It has to be the Thresh first pick, because you can't allow that Aphelios Thresh to go through again.
Nope.
But then the problem is, if you're going to get crushed in any 2v2, is this actually what you want to be prioritizing, particularly on blue side? You're going to give up that Rel again. It's going to be the same first round from Sengoku. Do you have another top lane counter pick? CGA, you can't just run it back in this draft because you got absolutely smashed in game 2, and you know there is only so much mirroring a draft does for you.
True enough. I mean, the thing is, it could be one of those things like actually burn, flash, heal, and die for first blood on the Jinx, and we got run down from there. Is it just that if that doesn't happen, we could play this a bit more evenly? And maybe that's the call. Either way, it's still not going to be that case. They're going to draft a Scion in, which is nearly guaranteed to be going top lane, unless there's some really weird shenanigans going.
This is the thing. It's a blue side Scion. This is a good chance that, you know, what we were talking about with Lexi on the desk. There's a chance this actually turns out to be a lane swap scenario. Why does this happen? Because Scion gives it, well, because a lot of the time you will see like a counter pick coming in for a specific lane matchup, and you want to get like a really strong lane and stuff like that. Blue having a lane swap kind of nullifies that, and it nullifies a lot of the advantage of of red side, right? And it also allows you to kind of move up towards Herald when that starts spawning too, and have so much pressure on the top side of the map. And Herald then allows you to move around and start crushing down those out turrets if you do lane swap and start diving a lot. Particularly because the tri-brush on red side means top lane is very gankable. If CGA were to go towards that, I think this is the situation to do so. But against the Udyr, being able to dive so proficiently on the other side of the map, dangerous from CGA.
Dangerous indeed. That's a lot of CC and a lot of frontline right now for Sengoku Gaming between Rel, Udyr, and of course that conditional frontline of Anar. They've still got to pick themselves up some solo laners, but bans are coming through thick and fast, and it's the 2 AP junglers that Kassin does favor, including that pocket pick of the Karthus off the table for Sengoku. On the other side, CGA trying to get rid of some of the playmaking tools for Gango. Samira off the table. You mentioned she's kind of back to being pretty strong in 11.5, even if she's not her initial S tier.
It's just with the Rel.
90%
with the Rel, it's the lane is still okay. And the thing is that, like, Samira still goes in fine. And when you've got a Rel and you do have such a strong laning duo like Gango and NC, it's something you can play around. Gonna go back to the Kai'Sa though. Always an option. It's Gango's most played champion of all time. Of course, has been a professional player for a very long time. Was a substitute on that Samsung White roster of 2014. Had himself some pedigree, been on some of the all-time great rosters, even though he wasn't necessarily on stage for a lot of them. CJ back to their last 2 picks. And, okay, Kassin has not had much success on the Olaf, but is one of those farming junglers, and it has the early game damage to maybe go for those dives. I again wonder if we're going to set ourselves up for a lane swap. And that, of course, leaves us with the mid lane picks left for these teams.
It's another bruiser to supplement the front line of the Scion. Of course, Thresh, if he gets enough souls, can be relatively tanky. And we've got a Azir backline with a fairly decent front line, front to back, standard team fighting stuff from CGA. And that could be a bit of a Ziggs. I would not necessarily hate it in this game, honestly. Zig into his ear, you can kind of outrange and be really obnoxious. And they're kind of hovering it again. But instead, they'll lock in the Rise, which is definitely more of a side lane split push for Ramune.
But then Rise into Azir is not a fun lane. That is really not a fun lane. You're now a very short range composition from Sengoku, having to go through a front line of Scion, and you have to deal with the Xayah as well. Olaf can run down a lot of these champions as well. I think CGA don't have a bad draft. Of course, I've said that about some of their previous games too. The question is, will they pull it off in the early game, particularly in this game?
Indeed, and I suppose for Sengoku Gaming, what they've kind of drafted more is for more of a 1-3-1, honestly. Gnar in one lane, Rise in the other, and then just have Kai'Sa and Udyr and Rel just turn up with their R's whenever you need them to try and turn up and turn those side lanes into more of an advantage. And it's a little bit harder, I think, in terms of barrier of execution for Sengoku Gaming, I imagine, at least on paper.
To a certain extent, because you are solo range, playing around conditional, very conditional engage in the Gnar again. Luckily, you have that Rel to make things easier, right? Rel and Udyr are much easier to play around, and when you kind of set them in stone, put them on rails, it allows the conditional parts to be much more favorable for your team, because you have, if you're playing on the Rise, who normally struggles to get into fights if you are outranged, having some people going in first for you helps with that. Paz are the same thing on the Mega Gnar. I think that Sengoku, with the way they've been playing and the laning advantages they've garnered for themselves, should not be unconfident heading into this game. I think they should be aiming for that 3-0, and they're in a good position to do so.
Should be aiming for a 3-0 is the verdict from Nymera. I tend to agree. It's a different look from their composition, but that's no bad thing. It's a little bit more, how shall I put this? Pressure, emphasis on Ramune in the mid lane. You want this Rise to be ahead and be a threat a little bit more. Necessarily the Azir necessarily had to be when the Kai'Sa was popping off, and of course the Aphelios in the first game in particular. It's not like Gango can't pop off again. It's that Kai'Sa Rel combo we saw last game, and that one worked out just fine for Sengoku Gaming.
That it did. So this time it's going to be, of course, the Xayah Thresh, which does have more disengaged potential, harder to get on top of them. You get to throw down those feathers. If you do go too deep, and it kind of step up as the Rise, and then the Feather Storm comes out, yeah, you can get punished accordingly. I think that Nation, again, has actual carry potential in this game. That's going to be important for CGA. This player has been so pivotal for CGA. And hopefully, for those fans out there of the boys in blue, that'll be what happens to bring us to that game 4. And I would really like to see, of course, this game go this whole series go the distance. With Sengoku, if they are looking, of course, to make that full bracket run, want to make a good start today, make it through this series, and say we chose the right opponents, because of course they chose the highest seed between CGA and the Hawks, and they would really want to just say that we made the right choice, and you should not doubt us.
And again, we were asking, okay, so why did they pick CGA, who seemed to have the better win record? Why did they go against these guys? Was there, never mind that, we've got a crash down coming down in the bot lane, but it's quickly disengaged from, so maybe I spoke a little too early there. That's the reason you pick Thresh into Rel. She can be disengaged if you get that flay right, and that's exactly what happened. And instead, we can turn back to asking, why did Sengoku pick CGA? And I kind of posited that maybe it was partly that whole, well, the bot lane difference could be fairly significant.
I think it's that. And even though CGA beat Sengoku recently, I look at the Hawks and I think their laning duo in the 2v2 is just much better. I think that you look at that duo and I was like, yes, I mean they are a 2v2 which has decent stats. Milan Alchemy absolutely not that, and Sengoku are a team, if nothing else, they are the team that have really succeeded when they've had laning advantages through the bot side of the map, and they've carried that through to wins.
We do have a game pause. Not entirely sure why as yet. If we do find out, we'll throw it at you. You'll notice, of course, ladies and gents, we're actually back in the studio in Roppongi. Of course, we're not. We're
Wait, isn't it in Shibuya nowadays?
Oh, actually, it might be Shibuya.
I'm sure it's in Shibuya nowadays.
Oh, might be Shibuya. Okay, never mind. They're actually very close, Shibuya and Roppongi. So they're only like I think they're like literally next door. Actually, you can walk from one to the other.
Right, you get our faces for a bit. Enjoy.
But you'll get indeed. But what a joy that will be.
We're not in Roppongi or in Sengoku or in
we're not.
Or in Shibuya.
We're in the UK. We're a long way away. Either way, it does mean this is back on LAN for the first time in a while for these guys.
That's a good point, right? Actually, this will be Milan's first LAN match. Actually, it will be Kassin's first LAN match. That's not really a factor we thought about before, but I mean, we talk about it with our big international tournaments in terms of that rookie stage fright and stuff, but heck, we talked about it with Mad Lions performing so well last year, and then they got to LAN and they kind of fell apart a bit. Can affect players in big ways.
It really can, and it's not even necessarily like I want to say CGA have played entirely badly. That first game was really competitive. The second one was less so, but we did worry, all of us, myself, Maswan, yourself, about what happens to some of these rookies. You know, Kassin is against Crash, who has been known to just run over jungle matchups occasionally. We've already had our issues about Milan and Lane versus Gango and Enti, of all people, as well. Like, and unfortunately, I think it has proven to be a bit of an issue in this game. Fortunately, guys, the pause wasn't all that extended, and we're back onto the Rift only moments after it was initiated. And nothing super crazy has happened thus far, though I'll note that Olaf has got a little bit of a faster clear thus far into the game. That's about
Olaf has a faster clear than pretty much everyone in the game, so nothing to be surprised about there. In first clear, I think that Olaf is probably still the fastest clearing jungler in the game. I'm trying to think if there is anyone else. Well, not clearing in the bot lane.
Never mind, not again! Not again! Gango and Enti get first blood. Enti finds the beautiful two-man engage. And it is happening all over again. Bot lane falls for CGA.
So, when you're playing against Rel, your most notable engaged tool is, of course, watching out for that crash down. That doesn't mean the mount up isn't in itself a engaged combo. Flips Milan over the shoulder, doesn't pop the heal because the ignite comes in too quickly, so because I think Milan was waiting for it to tick down and then use it for the full amount. Well, CJ loses himself first blood, and it's, of course, going to be Milan going down, losing that CS as well as a cannon wave.
Oh, no.
What happens? He just walks up too close. At the end of the day, he walks up too close. That's on Milan, steps too far forward. Maybe it's the pause, maybe it's the land, maybe it's a whole menagerie of reasons. Regardless, CJ now have to deal with, once again, difference between these AD carries.
And it's a double attract repel from Enti as well to make matters even worse. That's frustrating. Of course, it's also, you know, the flay wasn't there for the disengage from Alchemy, but that is another one of those individual 2v2 laning flaws that have come through for CGA, and it's punished them 3 games in a row, frankly.
That it has.
Gaming find themselves up 1,000 gold, and there's not even 5 minutes into the game.
And this feels, again, it's the kind of tennis analogy that I like to bring into League of Legends. It's an unforced error. You just walk up too close. This is a classic 2v2 play from NT. Well, I say classic. This is what this champion does. Okay, hook out of the crash down, though. That's not bad.
It's not bad. There's a lot of feathers on the floor, and actually this turnaround could be pretty huge. The healer's there. NT goes in to try and get something back, and instead they turn it around, and as we are despairing for this bot lane, they turn it right back around. Great news for CGA, and a breath of life, and maybe get out of jail free card.
Well, what would it be if Japan didn't have itself some Breath of the Wild plays down in the bot side? And Alchemy getting a 2v2 kill of their own right. So, kind of bails them out of that earlier 2v2. Of course, the kill doesn't go over to either AD carry. CS even between them, no culls involved, and kind of leads us to even map state. Bit of a lead, of course, to the Nara of the Sion early. So what happens here? Because you see the wave stacked up, and NC's just trying to get themselves a relic shield stack. Doesn't quite get behind the minion in time. Hook lands, and well, this is the problem. Hook into CC has been the story of Thresh lanes for so much time. CGA have themselves something to play around this bot side for maybe the first time this series.
And you saw the amount of feathers on the floor there. NT was in trouble, and he knew it. The
Writings on the wall, feathers on the floor.
Down, the death sentence comes through. That ability is just so aptly named. NT's back around and hiding out in this bush. Don't think he's been spotted as yet, though, with the attract repel now coming through. I think that might... I actually don't know whether that gives... whether the tether shows through, even if the other person's not on vision,
you can see it on Sejuani, interestingly enough. When you're in range of a melee champion, you can see that that little tether. I'm pretty sure you can see it on Taric too. Can maybe see a shuffle coming in mid. Double!
That's a big double shuffle. Kassin is here in mid as well, but Crash is still pretty damn tanky. So I don't think they're actually going to get all that much out of it. It's just the summon. It's a flash from Nation, but they don't actually get any summoners in turn. Instead, they're going to try and get round back and get onto Nation instead in turn. And Ramune gets that kill. NT's here in mid lane as well, and it's a double over to the Rise. It's turned around in a blink of an eye.
That is such an overstep from Nation. It goes up too far, knowing that you hadn't blown any summers, knowing that Udyr has early damage into this game, and gives over a boatload of gold to the Rise, who will scale up, will be happy against the Sion, will be happy now against the Azir too. How does this happen in the replay? Well, it all starts from that early vision control. You know that bot lane has the priority too. You've been able to get across the map. Now you hear him flash into the bush and goes, oh crap, that's one more person than we really had thought about. But at this point, you should immediately be thinking, Rel is missing. There are too many ways this play can go wrong. Kassin had to disengage. Nation just could not walk up too close. They just don't understand where it is safe to be on the map. And NT comes up really, really big in that to get a second kill and stop Olaf from farming.
Yeah, I suppose Nation was like, can I back out through the river? Nope, there's a Rel coming this way. I need to get the soldiers up, but I've just used them to go forwards here. And Udyr just runs at him and he's dead. And that's
this is the problem with Azir, right? Particularly your E is a very long cooldown. You rarely get two of them off in a fight. Use it for the engage, use the flash for the engage. At that point, you need to have won that fight. Otherwise, you just cannot start. If you're going to get CC'd down, you probably die, especially this early into the game. You don't have that burst damage.
Alright, well, it was suddenly back to even for a little bit for CGA, and now it's right back the other way. Never mind bot lane advantage if you can get a mid lane double kill onto your Rise. Sub 10 minutes, you take that every day of the week. Rise very far ahead now in this game, purely off that 3v2. We'll give NT credit for his appearance at the end of it all. And instead, Nahum now might be in a spot of bother, gets room prison, but is quick enough on his shifting sands to get his out of trouble this time. Crash, all the while, though, has been soloing down this early Herald, on spawn, no less.
He has. So, Crash going to get the early objective, Sengoku get the early dragon. CGA had managed to get a couple of these earlier into the series, not to be in this game 3. Important thing to note is that actually, Gango hits the W going for a play.
He does hit the W, can't quite get the execute with the plasma, though it got closer than Milan would have liked. It forces him away from the tower, though, while the Herald was going down. Yes, he gets the plate, but it comes at a hefty HP bar trade. Kassin is around, though, and Alchemy is as well. Here comes NT and Crash, so the 3v3 is here, and with the HP disadvantage, I think CGA just have to disengage a little here.
I mean, I don't really think it's CJ that's lost that much. You get away, you get the Kaiser roll out. You don't lose anything on Milan, who was already popping refillable pots, had biscuits in inventory too. I don't think Milan was in any danger, having flash heal and ult at that point. Mid lane turret, no danger from the side of CJ. It's not going to be all the play. It's just going to be 2 of them with that Herald put down. More gold onto the rise, though, building up into, looks to be the Everfrost, actually, with the Ruby Crystal built up. And that's going to mean that if you go in for that Rune Prison, they're going to be stuck around for that much longer because you're going to have the Everfrost follow-up. That's dangerous for the likes of the Azir. And, of course, if you ever get caught out in that front line, be expected to have an extended stay.
And for once, it is not the bot lane that has got the major lead for Sengoku Gaming. It is instead that mid lane for Ramane that is feeling very happy with how this early lane has gone. Gango and NT are slightly ahead of Milan and Alchemy, but not massively. Honestly, not much of a difference at all. 100 or so, which is, frankly, in the grand scheme of things, close enough to dead even.
It's even enough to start fighting around. That's the important thing. That's the thing which CGA will care about. Because, well, I mean, the rest of the map, kind of unfortunate for this Scion on the Azir, who are kind of sat there now in their opposite numbers, kind of against these Goldies, and like, when do we actually want to start fighting? Herald already gone down to Sengoku. Dragon's already gone down to them. At what point do you actually want to start fighting? And can you afford to go later and not take early fights against this Ryze, who will have those preferential 1-3-1 laning setups?
Power's going to find himself another plate here in the top side as well. This has just been the isolated 1v1. It is range versus melee. That's Ramane getting shuffled in. He's going to try and get out with that. Realm Warp does so. The CC was already burned, and he just gets to walk away.
So, not quite enough damage coming in from the burst. Only cancel available on the Realm Warp is that Emperor's Divide. So Ramane says, okay, I can get out. Doesn't matter if I don't have Flash. And that's going to be ult for ult trade, all things said and done. But it is still going to be Ramane out of lane, maybe forcing the teleport back to lane.
Might well do. He's going to come back in with a Kindle Gem and some Sork Boots in inventory. And feel okay about himself. He's got himself a Realm... got himself a Phase Rush is what he actually has to get away from that nicely timed roam from Alchemy. Leaves Gango and Milan alone in this bot lane, which has been a problem before. Gango's already shown he's willing to pull that killer instinct. And it's not just a 1v1 anymore, because look who is here but Crash and Enti. Of course, Milan does have the Feather Storm and had Alchemy roaming up, so no dive actually initiated by Sengoku Gaming, and we'll move back away. 10 seconds till this Infernal Drake. Alchemy and Milan might find themselves with a bit more confidence than they would be hoping for.
Doesn't have Realm Warp, does have Flash. On the other side, though, Milan has the ult. See if they can disengage.
As the Magnet Storm! The feathers come out, but the killer instinct is there. They can't quite get the kills yet until Ramane gets one. Crash goes in and gets the bear slap to get another double to the mid laner. Rise at 4-0-0. I thought Ramane was supposed to be the weak point on this team.
Well, Ramane throughout this series has actually been having a huge impact. Milan doesn't have quick enough fingers, doesn't get the ultimate down early enough, loses most of their HP before they start to get playing around those feather recalls. So often is that the telling point of how Azir is doing in the game. Can they end up outplaying and actually avoiding the damage which puts them into danger before that you start playing around those feather recalls for the really big damage turnarounds? In this case, it's no. Sengoku finally do find themselves a bit of a bot lane advantage for themselves. It is through the incursion of members from the rest of the map towards them, though.
And we'll see a replay here of how this one goes in. The Flash crash down, a Magnet Storm. Rel's so nasty.
I just don't see it, because you see them on Vision, right? You see them start the crash down animation. As soon as that animation starts, you just have to pop ult. You just don't have a choice. Milan doesn't end up doing that, not for the first time in this split. 'Cause remember, of course, there was that really horrid game versus V3 where, you know, Milan had Gale Force, Ultimate, and Flash available and still got hit by the Solar Flare in a pivotal fight. And maybe, yeah, not for the first time this split, not really using their defensive tools appropriately.
And all of this has led to a significant lead to Sengoku Gaming. They are up about, well, near enough 3,000 gold. There's 200 gold odd in it. And they have got a lot of items. That's a decent use of the Emperor's Divide, but it's not going to be enough. Neo gets stunned, but does manage to flash away just about. Got close, but does get out.
Gets out, actually shoves Crash right back into turret, forces him to take a lot of different turret shots. On the top side, that Nap, well, he's just having a bit of a hard time on the turret. Now down 30 CS to Paz. Seems like Sengoku just everywhere, naturally winning across the map now.
Yeah, and before we saw that play in mid lane, I was going to call out that the item completions have just come through for Sengoku. They've all got mythics aside from the support, and it's just that now completed Everfrost. It's not Everfrost. Come on, Frozen Gauntlet. Oh no, Frostfire Gauntlet. There we go. I finally got that. I know.
So funny story. There was a cast earlier in the split where Sam forgot it. Sam and Lexi were casting, because it's an item which we've always known as Iceborne Gauntlet. It took us about like a good 2 minutes to finally kind of get the name through, and I wrote it on big rainbow letters across our prep document for future reference. And for future reference, Paz might not want to be in this lane.
He's still got himself a crunch to get his way out of trouble. Flashes the undertow, but there's still a Strikebreaker, and Cassin just does not care about turret. Here comes the 2 in response. So crashes here, and he's very, very fast. Remember, Ghost and Ragnarok now down for Cassin. There's a Decimating Smash to buy space and time. Cassin still in trouble. Has got to deal with the rampaging Ramone, who finds himself 1, and Nap flashes away to make sure it won't be 2. Potentially under tower. Just needs 1 more overload and an auto attack to make it. Guess what? Another double for Ramone. 6-0 on the rise.
So is Ramone back to his old form, back to that 2017 heyday? Well, maybe not for most of this split, but in this series he's showing off what he's still made of. And against Nation, one of our best performing mid laners, well, when a push comes to shove, Ramone comes out in this 3rd game. And wow, what a game so far.
Prove yourself and play Rise. Ramone doing both in this game. He has proven himself, got himself up 2,500 gold individually over his opponent in Nation, who's tried to make some plays with the Empress Divide and his jungler. It's just not worked out. Whereas for Ramone, that is a double kill so far in this game. Across the map, he's got 1 in top lane, 1 in bot lane, and 1 in mid lane.
And he's just about to get Seraph's Embrace, too. He has 8,000 gold in 15 minutes. That is absurd. Of course, Paz manages to outplay in this top side. Nap not really able to get that much involved in this play. And Cassin doesn't get stunned up under turret. I think at this point, Nap just goes far too deep on trying to bail out his jungler. And yes, sometimes you want to go for that outplay, but you got to understand that Rise is at a point where you can't really ignore him now. Nap is not tanky enough, doesn't have enough gold, been put down way too much in lane. And then, of course, NT's first to the roam too between the supports. Nap flashes away, and that's just kind of a summoner for nothing. No summoners were committed after that point. Ramone gets another double, gets double buffs. Actually, in a couple more spellcasts, is going to get the Seraphs. Crash gets caught, though.
But he does, but I think it's going to turn around on the teleport. It's going to be too late, and down goes Cassin. This time he's not on a bush by himself, but on the bot side, the teleport's interrupted. Oh, it's not a teleport, it's just Milan versus Paz. I thought it must have been a teleport. Instead, Thanara's fighting a 1v1 versus the AD carry, and now he's got to run away from everybody coming. No! Does manage to Feather Storm the Void Seeker. That time, the fingers were quick enough.
Ooh, close run stuff, Milan. Sat at 0-2, really not want to be sat at 0-3. At least the collateral from this play is Nation gets himself a tower. Blitzcrank-san, well, helpfully telling us a spade is a spade, and Sengoku are likely to win this game from this gold advantage. And CJ, every time they outplay and they use these tools, it's to keep themselves alive rather than make a big play for themselves. Sengoku comfortably sliding into the advantage this game.
They are 5,000 gold ahead, which I've said a few times this series. They've got 2 dragons. They're looking for Ocean Soul Point at sub 18 minutes. They've got 3 turrets to 1, and they have a Rise that is frankly unstoppable. And a Kai'Sa that's not looking so bad in this game.
Well, I'm pretty sure 6-0 is unstoppable, isn't it? And that it's, you know, wait, unless that's
what is 6-0? Is that godlike?
I think it's godlike, unstoppable, legendary. Crash is trying to stop Kassin in his tracks though, and as Kassin is trying to get something for themselves, looking for a red buff steal, not going to get it though.
Indeed, he is not, and we'll have to pull out of that one. Sengoku at Soul Point, as we mentioned, got a lot of map control, got a Rise that's going to be completely untouchable in the side lane. What have Crest Gaming got in the in the toolkit at this point to try and stall out and find a way back into this game?
Well, it's on land, so you can't have a lag switch. And then, well, maybe one of the players' hands spontaneously just gets RSI, like this repetitive strain injury. That's really what you're hoping for. It is so difficult to come back at this point in the game because Sion is not a relevant front line. Your Xayah cannot survive, well, pretty much anywhere on the map. You have losing side lanes. Azir isn't at a point where he can start carrying in the time frame of the team fights that these are likely to start coming across. CJ, really, again, it comes down to the point where you need to prey on mistakes, because if things go to the playbook, Sengoku have all the advantages.
They do. Maybe if you can get everybody on top of Ramadi, he gets shuffled in, has Nap and Cassim run out of as well. Rise is so much of the gold for Sengoku Gaming. So much of the gold with how this game has gone so far.
He's got a 950 gold shutdown, yes.
That is a big shutdown, and B is a lot of the damage threat right now. You know, actually AD carry items relative parity right now. It's completed item versus completed item. Yes, it's not a mythic in for Milan, but the point still stands. If you can kill off the Rise before he gets too much work done, then maybe the rest of the fight is a bit more feasible, but it's been hard thus far, and, you know, with the Everfrost and the Arcade, or the Seraphs, rather, it gets tough.
And he's got the Blighting Jewel, which means that Sion is no longer relevant in this game. Sion is just not a factor. Rise already gets to sit and hold him in place with the Everfrost and everything else. He's gone for the Steel Tocas, not gone for the Mercury Treads. Zero Tenacity. I mean, heck, Nap, even with the full armor build, losing to the Gnar as well. Ramune is going to completely delete the front line. And CGA are kind of sat there thinking, well, what can we do in this situation in terms of the team fights? Can we shut down the Rise? Well, because there are so many people stood in front of him, because you're likely to have that Rel and Crash too, it's going to be difficult.
We go. There is the Empress Divide trying to come out and save time, but Crash just destroys the Azir. It's too late. It's too much gone. Ramune takes some damage, but for the first time this game, he won't get a kiss. He won't get the kill in a kill he was involved in. There we go.
Yeah, so he gets himself an... Oh no, he has an assist. That is the worst thing.
I know, it's awful, but that means we're going to see the start up on this Baron. Sengoku have been so quick on them. It's only just spawned. It's Kai'Sa, it's Rise, it's dead. And Baron goes the way of Sengoku Gaming. And Paz is hopping forwards with Meganar and Milan trying to run away. That's a very scary dinosaur coming at you. And charging in goes Enti, but he'll crash down the other way. And the only thing crashing harder is anybody who had stocks in CGA.
Well, I think Crash is going pretty hard this game too, so maybe... and also, that's a great dig of me, by the way, coming out with my 3-2 prediction I know, for CJ. Right? There was a chance, but it turns out Sengoku were not wanting to entertain that thought in the slightest. This is what happened towards topside. Yes, you can disengage onto Crash, but CC into CC into CC. Yes, Ramune walks melee range into the Olaf, still gets out with the flash. That's how much gold, HP, and stats that this player has right now. And you just cannot deal with Ramune. And all the while, if he gets a free 3 seconds to start throwing spells at you, pretty much everyone dies.
Right. Well, had a look over, and it is in fact godlike at 7 kills, legendary at 8, by the way. Cool. Unstoppable is 5 kills, dominating 6, godlike 7. Says legendary is 8. There you go.
Who plays with announcer volume that high anyway to actually hear that? Well, Nat might want to have an announcer that crashes in his lane.
He does indeed flash over the Everfrost, so isn't rooted for absolutely ever, and does manage to escape, but it's a summoner down for not a lot burned by Sengoku at all. Just some item cooldowns, really. And they're going to try and move on.
I mean, item cooldowns, what of it? I mean, Everfrost has about a 20-second cooldown. It will be up the next time someone comes to clear this wave. In fact, it is up already. That's one of the power of Everfrost. It gives you such available CC. It's like on the same cooldown as, like, I don't know, a level 1 Nautilus hook or something like that. Yeah, it's a long cooldown for a basic ability, not for an item. Enti, speaking of the CC machines, on a flank. This is really CGA caught behind enemy lines. This is looking disastrous.
But Paz does not have Megalor, but it's not going to matter because that Magnet Storm was just incredible. And it's lightning striking multiple times in this particular storm. It's a triple kill, in fact, as far as lightning strikes. Rise finds them all. He'll realm warp them down towards mid lane, looking for a little bit more. There's no minion wave here as Crash nearly dies out to the Ocean Drake. He'll smite early and will heal his way up and get them Ocean Soul.
And the devil warped down to mid lane. He was looking for an Azir to kill. He was in a bind, a rune prism, I suppose. Not exactly far behind, because he's Ramune with another triple kill. And Ramune, speaking of that, as his mid lane opponent, finds absolutely nothing in that 1v1. Paz has just been in absolute top lane nirvana this game. Because he's sat there and was like, I will 1v1. I will turn up to top. I will turn up to team fights when my team asks me to. And I don't need to worry about carrying the game because everything else is going very swimmingly for me. NT has just one of the top tier rel engages. Everyone grouped up. That is the gold standard for support engage play. Rel makes it easy, makes it look easy. Either way, gets the huge amount of CC, and CGA, they were far behind. They knew they were in a bit of a difficult situation, and, well, they've just kind of dug their own graves, and it is looking like that 3-0 shutout inevitably looming for CGA.
Well, the devil might have decided he's not moving to Georgia, but instead to mid lane, but I think the track's being played on a tiny violin all the same. Sengoku Gaming definitely a long way ahead, and it's starting to sound a little bit more like a funeral march right now for CGA, who are down 10,000 gold and Ocean Soul, and it's not even 25 minutes. You can just see the damage dealt by Ramune in that last fight. Pretty ridiculous. Now Milan's in trouble. That's an attempted engage. That doesn't work out. Nathan can't get these Emperor's Divides to mean anything. I appreciate the fact he's looking for something, looking for anybody, but it's just not enough. And you're looking at a rise. It's 9-0 1, Nymera.
This is the best. Oh, Gango actually outplaying. He outplays him like heck.
He dodges one way, comes back the other. That's everyone going in, but Gango's still firing out ultimates. The Magnet Storm is still good from NT, but he might well fall. That's Nahum getting a kill. Paz now turns up at the back end. He's not got Mega Knight anytime soon. Ramune trying to get stuff down, but that's Nahum going in, who does go down to the Rise, who is throwing out overloads and spell fluxes. And that Rise is just incredible. They lose NT, but take everybody in trade. Nap's the only one remaining, and his zombie dies to make sure it is the ace. Ramune's down in bot lane, and that, my friends, will be the 3-0 for Sengoku Gaming. There's no way they're stopping this one from the death chamber.
Ramune conjuring up memories of his rampaging past. 11-0-2, 3-0 on the day. Welcome to the next round, Sengoku.
Sengoku Gaming are the warring kingdoms. They're coming up at the end of the split. So damn hot. They will crush CGA in a 3-0 clean sweep. You better be watching out anybody who has to face them.
We will, and you can see that elation on the faces of the Sengoku members packing up their kit now, and honestly, much cleaner than I would have expected. Would have thought a bit more of a fight would have come out of CGA, and they of course will be departing us from playoffs. This is the lower bracket. There will be no second chances. Sengoku, though, live to fight another day.
They do indeed, and that last game wasn't even Gango and NT this time. It was Ramune, the one man we said might not have as much opportunity to shine on this squad. Absolutely pulling out a killer performance on the Rise. Still, we're going to break down this game and this series a little bit further after a quick break to gather our thoughts. So stick around, grab yourself a drink. We'll be right back with this analyst desk.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the desk. Swan, initialize Nightmare, gentlemen. That's it. That's all she wrote. And I hate to say I told you so, but I don't.
Look, hey, can you hear anything, Nightmare? What I'm getting is like a lot of hot air and smugness coming.
Something slipped on my audio, and suddenly we only have. Oh no! It's almost as if there are suddenly two of us on the screen.
It's just.
I'll bring it back. Hello, Lassie.
He looks so offended. It's wonderful.
I don't like this. I don't have the power for once, and then this is what happens, gentlemen. We saw Sengoku Gaming 3-0, Crest Gaming Act, and outside of game number 1. It just never felt that close. And let's talk about this bot lane, because Crest Gaming Act lost first blood again. This was Milan and Alchemy going too far up, and then Crest Gaming Act getting punished again in this bot lane, and Sengoku Gaming just knowing what to do.
I mean, yeah, I thought that this was the best 2v2 game out of CGA so far, which is kind of sad. They gave up the first blood, not great, but they also turned around for another kill. That's not something we've seen a lot. Is, of course, Alchemy, proficient Thresh player, lands the hook, lands the kill, right? And actually, it felt like this game, out of all of the games, was probably the least bot lane difference. And even then, it was still a difference.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Because it did eventually end up even, but they were in a hole early on, and we were terrified it was going to happen all over again. First blood happening. I am very pleased they managed to stabilize the bot lane, because the rest of the map, gents, was on fire, which was a bit of inversion for the rest of the series, but it just did not look good mid, did not look good top.
It started out as a 2v2 in this mid lane. What Initialize was hinting towards, Nation was doing pretty well to play around this. It was like, ooh, what's going to happen? Is Kassin going to get here in time on this Olaf, or is it actually going to be a crash part? They get the first kill, and then NT has more to say about the second one.
Well, this is the thing, right? Because looking at that 2v2, it was one that was started off by CGA, by this Azir. Actually only thinks it's one person, then slides into the brush and realizes there's an Udyr waiting for them too. I think one of the big parts of this early game was the fact that Azir had gone for Lethal Tempo, not for the Comet. Now, Comet is not great at scaling into the game, but when you go for Leandries first, it gives you poke options. It allows you to hold down opponents in lane early. That's why Ryze can struggle versus this. It didn't happen in this game. Was it enough HP to outplay? It's exactly what happens. Nation then steps way too far up, and NT had the first roam, and that ends up to the second kill going on to Kassin. It's just a misjudged play from the CGA mid-jungle 2v2, and it feels like they misjudged a lot of plays throughout this series.
Let's really hammer this home, Initialize, when the misplays were happening, because there's not much to say, but the bot dive that happened really accelerated Ramone.
Yeah, so Ramone has already got a double kill at this point. It's 1-for-1, bot lane's kind of gone even, and then the double kill comes from the mid lane we just talked about. And for once, Ramone was the guy getting attention from Sengoku Gaming. It's normally been the side lanes, and honestly, to an extent, rightly so, the side lanes have earned the presence of their jungler of Crash pretty often. Gango and NT being great, but this final game was all Ramone. He gets the double kill, and he just runs away with it from there. They turn up bot with everybody but the top laner. NT goes in, and the Feather Storm from Milan is late. It does not come out, and it's Ramone there, landing the Rune Prisons, hitting the Overloads. I don't think he misses a single Q in that fight, actually. He gets another double kill, and suddenly at 12 minutes, this Ryze is 4-0-0, is well up to his mythic item very, very early on in the game. We already said Ryze is a terror in a side lane. He's a significantly more terrifying when he has got accelerated that damn fast. If his first item is expedited that quickly, he just becomes so much more difficult to get on top of and deal with, especially considering, he can be a bit item reliant. If he gets it 2 minutes, 3 minutes early, then it's all gone wrong very quickly.
Yeah, and the side of Sengoku Gaming weren't only just doing these kills, they weren't only just getting ahead in the kill lead, there was the gold lead, which was also in turn done partly through them getting the first turrets on the map. They got all of the dragons this game, they got all the Rift Heralds, and they really pulled apart Crest Gaming Act and how they normally like to play this game. let's talk about an opportunity where, I mean, this is probably the best part for Crest Gaming Act, but it was all a bait. And this is where I'm talking about the top lane, when the dive that comes out and the damage onto Paz in this top lane Nymera, it felt like maybe this was the only hope for Crest Gaming Act, but even then it was a bit in vain.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just another play where CJ just misjudge. You don't really ever want to be playing around a Sion. You want to bail him out and make sure that he's stable. This seemed like an aggressive play that was just put way too deep. And then after that point, Nap kind of stayed around a little too long. Yes, had the spellbook. Yes, had the heal. Maybe had an ability to outplay. You've already used the Ragnarok, though. You have to get on top of the Rise, because Rise will always out DPS you if you're firing shot for shot. He does exactly that. Gets another couple of kills, and he's run away with the game at that point. He already was out of control. Just makes it worse.
And to put a nail in the coffin, we must talk about this fourth dragon, as this was honestly the first true team fight we actually saw from both these teams. It was back to front. But Initialize, NT had maybe one of the best Rel ultimates I've seen in competitive play.
Yeah, it was Ocean Soul Point. It was a last gasp attempt from CGA. It looked like it might be okay, because Paz's Meganar had just run out. It's like, well, okay, the Meganar's now out. This might be a chance. There's a couple items here and there. If you get this Rise somehow,
Sengoku had no vision at this point as well.
And instead, Flash crashed down Magnet Storm onto 4 people. Was exquisite from NT. In comes the Kai'Sa, in comes the Rise, and the rest of CGA just disappeared. Naken escapes through the mid lane and then finds himself with a 1v1 by the enemy red buff as Paz chased him down a little bit later, and it was just the clean ace by the time it was done, and that was light out if they weren't already.
Like, CJ knew they had to fight to the death there. They clumped up for the Rel. It made it easy. Rel makes things look easy, but you still have to hit that shot. It comes through, and it is such a sublime ultimate. You just come through, and then effectively the game ends off that play. Like, yes, the game was probably already over, but that's the one you want to clip and ship. And
shut the door hard.
Put that one on your Twitter feed and say, okay, that's one I can be proud of.
Yeah, and I mean, it felt like it was everything. It was 2-14, 11k gold diff, Dragon Soul for Sengoku Gaming. It felt like the game was over, and it well and truly was. Crest Gaming Act got 3-0. They had been 2-0 versus this. However, this will change the historic standings a little bit for Sengoku, as Crest Gaming Act were heavily favored. Before this, it was 11 wins to Crest Gaming Act, 3 wins to Sengoku. Whoa. 2 of those wins to Sengoku came from, well, Blank Empyrean being a part of the roster, so that definitely helps significantly.
Sengoku roster.
Maybe the best one that we've seen so far. But with that, gentlemen, what a first game to start playoffs. Like, what a first game, like, first series. Like, this was Sengoku with a statement here. What's your thoughts on it now?
No, Sam, go. Sorry.
Okay, so I think my thoughts have always been that there have been 4 teams that have been a cut above everybody else in the LJL. They are Detonation Focus, me and Rascal Jesters, kind of up in the upper echelons. They're in that Juggernaut match. We'll see them in a couple of weeks.
Almost spilled my coffee.
Nymera nearly
okay.
spills.
That would have been that spell.
He's the one producing this, so he would have died very quickly there as far as the stream just crashing.
Well, at least the games are done.
But they've always been up there, and then kind of just slightly behind them, looking to push their way up, has been Sengoku Gaming and V3 Esports. CGA and Hawks were just a little bit below that, and we were saying, well, can Sengoku and V3 contest either RJ or DFM, come through as another contender, and a strong 3-0 in very convincing fashion as Nymera slightly terrified of his own hot drink.
It's quite a lukewarm now, it's fine.
Yeah, a strong 3-0 here gives a little bit more faith for Sengoku as a dark horse in this.
I mean, I don't know about you two, but how does this change your opinions of, say, you know, the likelihood of Sengoku sweeping someone like V3 come the next round? Because Ryan has not been looking awesome recently. I know that Ryan, obviously Ryan can be maybe the best player in the LJL. Definitely contending for that last year. If we have this tempo and this kind of bot lane pressure coming out from Sengoku, I actually think Guy might go for a 3-0 for them over V3.
I'd have to first see the series from the Hawks versus V3. I don't think I'm actually going Hawks. Well, I don't think I'm going V3 3-0 versus the Hawks to start with. So I'd be a little less likely to do that versus Sengoku. But then their tiebreaker match was very one-sided initialized, wasn't it? So yeah, maybe.
Well, the thing is, even in that tiebreak match, it was 1 kill in 30 minutes. V3 was so far.
So glad I didn't have to cast
They
that,
were
by the way.
so far ahead.
Lucky
so
you.
far ahead. There was a Tristana at 3 items super early on. The turrets were all falling down. The split push comp was on lane with this top lane Trist, as we mentioned. It was looking real good. But it's one of those comps where you have no tank. It's all poke. It's all about taking turrets and sieging. And if you ever make a misstep, the game just falls apart. And Sengoku snap up the opportunity. But it wasn't like V3 didn't come up with a game plan and didn't play to it pretty well for 30 damn minutes. It's just one mistake lost them the game. I will be interested to see that rematch, should it come about. Because I'm hoping we get a little bit more of a contest, because Sengoku put light out versus CGA.
I think that's a fair point. I definitely would like to see a bit more of a contest. But gentlemen, if we don't get a contest from our next playoff match, which will be the Hawks facing off against V3 Esports, we will be seeing Rascal Justice face off against Detonation Focus Me. And gentlemen, those are the matches that we have to look forward to. And they're definitely going to be some heaters. Which one are you expecting to be the bigger one? Obviously, Detonation Focus Me and Rascal Justice, that's going to be fireworks, right?
I think it has to be that one, right? Because I look at that and I would imagine if things go south for DFM, maybe we see a switch around of rosters. We don't even know which roster is going to be starting. It could be their Legacy one, could be Aria and Kazu coming in too. And remember, this is the really scary thing is actually this is not DFM's final form. What I would love to be the storyline is for Rascal Jester to maybe lose to DFM now, beat them in the finals, and then Summer have full form. It's like Frieza who comes back as Golden Frieza after training for the first time in his life, and you have this full 5-man unit with both Arya and Gang in the roster coming back in Summer. That would be crazy. I still think that DFM are favorites coming into this split though. They're just so scary. They're so scary.
Well, gentlemen, have you got any last thoughts for maybe one of our fastest streams in the LJL when covering a series? Because this was a blistering fast series.
Teams need to find a way to deal with Gango and NT. Yes, this was not a very strong lane to give them a challenge. But this is what happens when you leave them uncontested. And I think that should make teams wary at the very least.
Come on, I want a little bit more from you, Nymera.
What do I want out of this series? I mean, I want people to try and figure out a way to put Gango back in the dumpster, because if he's ever put on strong side of the map, he's looked great. Well, I think people need to really try and find a way to uncover that other side of Gango that we know. And maybe that is through some really weird shenanigans around what junglers are doing, having a Jarvan diving bot super early, doing weird stuff like that. I think the LJL needs to step up its game in the early game. I think it needs, because if you go to MSI and you're gonna get people doing that to you, level 4 dives, level 3 to level 2 dives, stuff like that. That's the kind of play which really upsets your top teams around these regions, and I want to start seeing it in playoffs right now.
We want to see a momentum in this early game from our teams. We've definitely got some of the really good ones to see that from still with Rascal Jester and Detonation Focus Me. But maybe we'll see some of that coming out earlier than you think with the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks facing off against V3 Esports. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be announcing right here, right now, that our YouTube is already releasing the first few matches of this series. So if you already missed it, you can check it out over on our YouTube. Our podcast will be coming out on Thursday. Tuesday is when we record it, and we will be asking for your questions, obviously, about this series that we've just watched, and obviously getting you all prepared for the Fukuoka Hawks facing off against V3 Esports. But gentlemen, we're all done here. Have you got anything else you'd like to say? Nymera first.
Bring on the rest of playoffs. More games. Let's go.
Initialize.
V3, you better put up a good showing against the Hawks, because Sengoku are here to play. And if you want to take them on for a rematch, well, could be an interesting one.
Things are definitely heating up here in the LJL. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you all very, very soon.